The city at night always wears a gentleness so different from the bustling, crowded, and hurried daytime. Tall buildings now become just silent blocks reflecting blue-purple neon lights, their glimmer stretched out like ribbons trailing after the rain on glass surfaces. The air in the office seems to slow down, settle, until all that's left is the constant hum of the ceiling vent. A few faint yellow glows from desk lamps left on, just enough to softly reveal the scratched surface of wooden desks and the shadows of thick stacks of files piled next to a laptop still aglow. The coffee in the cup has long gone cold, the steam long faded, leaving only a subtle aroma clinging to the conditioned air. Blending with the scent of paperwork and the faint metallic tang of pens scattered across the desk. Even the jacket draped carelessly over the chair has long lost its warmth. Now just a soft, wrinkled piece of cloth bearing the shape of its owner and the fatigue at the end of a long day. Ethan, myself, quietly checked every page of the project plan, my eyes moving slowly over the lines of numbers, my fingertips tapping lightly on the table whenever I found a detail to fix. The sensation of a looming deadline is strange. It forces me to focus intensely, yet also stretches every second into eternity, makes my palms sweat while my mind remains uncomfortably alert. The ceiling lights reflect on the window glass, creating blotchy shadows, while outside, the rain starts to fall, large drops beating against the windows, and then sliding down like cold tears. Just as I thought I was completely isolated from the world, the sound of high heels rang softly in the dark hallway. That sound approached slowly but surely, each step echoing in the silence as if waking the entire office from its midnight sleep. Olivia appeared at the door, petite, but with eyes that never seemed to tire. She still wore a fitted beige dress that hugged every slender curve, her bare shoulders brushed with her naturally loose brown hair, her wrist flicking lightly as she set her bag on a chair. Her lips curved just slightly as she met my eyes, half smiling, half as if she wanted to ask something she couldn't say aloud. A faint perfume, a blend of bergamot and jasmine, followed her every move, forming a personal aura that made me unconsciously breathe deeper every time she walked past my desk in the daytime. Olivia glanced around the room, her gaze sweeping across every familiar object. The printer, the dried flower vase in the corner, stacks of yellow sticky notes, the little photos pinned on the corkboard. She poured herself a glass of water, the sound of water hitting the glass oddly clear in the intense silence. Then she pulled out a chair and sat facing me, saying nothing more, just tilting her head to peer at me over the computer screen. The light caught her face, making her skin seem smoother, her eyes bright and sparkling, filled with both questions and a quiet empathy. "You haven't left yet?" she asked softly, her voice hoarse as if it was long past midnight. I smiled, my own laughter rougher and drier than usual. "Still working on the final plan. What about you? Forget something?" Olivia shook her head, her lips curling as if teasing, but didn't answer directly, just quietly spinning the glass in her hands as though considering something deeply personal. From that moment, the air in the room felt entirely different. The sound of rain outside grew heavier, weaving a gentle acoustic curtain over everything. We sat in the golden light, both listening to the falling rain, feeling each other's breathing intermingled with the ticking of the wall clock. Sometimes our eyes met over the computer screen, and every time I saw something soft, real, and feminine in her gaze. No longer Olivia, the project assistant, but simply Olivia, a young woman sitting opposite me in the late night, in a space that was no longer just a place of work. I tried to busy myself with the documents, but the dancing words on the screen could no longer hold me to the reality of work. Sometimes, my hand would tap an idle rhythm on the desk, fingers sliding over the folder cover as if seeking a familiar motion to calm myself. Olivia no longer tried to hide either. She sat with her legs drawn up on the chair, hands cradling her glass, eyes never leaving me, her long lashes casting shadows on her cheeks every time she looked down into the soft blue light of the screen. A light breeze slipped in through the slightly open window, bringing the scent of rain and damp earth into the room, making the air seem warmer, though in truth the air conditioning had not changed. That feeling, both familiar and strange, drawing us closer yet keeping us at arm's length. I realized I wanted to break the silence with a question or just some small gesture, but then I hesitated, afraid that even a touch would change everything forever, and neither of us could ever go back. The yellow desk lamp cast Olivia's shadow on the wall behind, a faint figure at once sensual and fragile. Her legs crossed, small hands resting on her knees, her sleeve slipping just enough to reveal bare shoulders, stray locks of hair falling along her collarbone. Everything seemed naturally arranged, yet suggested an intimacy so delicate and unexpected. Each time she tilted her head towards me, her eyes seemed even deeper. There was no more shyness, nothing left to hide, just two grown-ups sitting together, listening to the rain at midnight, letting every breath and silent thought drift through the increasingly dense air. Outside, the wind picked up, rain hammering against the glass in long streaks, like nameless emotions rising and then ebbing within me. I suddenly thought about the meaning of privacy, something nobody needs in a bustling office during the day, but that becomes precious and seductive in the depths of the night. And tonight, in that privacy, I realized I was no longer a team leader, no longer a man responsible for deadlines, no longer someone who needed to appear strong. I was simply a man, sitting across from a woman, in a space where every rule was temporarily blurred by the sound of midnight rain. The tiny pantry room, once just a place where people hurried through for quick breaks, in this moment turned into a secluded world belonging to only the two of us. The air seemed to grow warmer with every passing minute. Not sure if it was because of the long silence, or the way the physical distance between me and Olivia kept narrowing in a way that felt entirely unforced. The ceiling lights cast a gentle golden glow across her skin, accentuating every soft detail on her face and the curves of her shoulders beneath the fabric. The old sofa, the tiny scratches on its wooden arms, the throw pillow with faded patterns, even the faint scent of old tea lingering in the flask, all blended together, shaping a space both familiar and alive with the pulse of sweet tension. At first, we just exchanged a few questions about work. I told her about the unresolved contracts, the endless online meetings, about a long day where everyone seemed to expect me to have all the answers. Olivia smiled, a quiet smile of someone who understood that feeling all too well. Then began sharing stories about her own deadlines chased deep into the night, the lonely mornings waking alone in her silent apartment, the illusions of a youth that once glowed bright before bursting like soap bubbles. Every story she told, every time she swept her tired hair behind her ear, only made me want to move closer, to be the only one allowed to listen and touch the cracks she rarely revealed. Sometimes Olivia fell silent, her eyes turning to the glass door, misted with the night's moisture. Then I, too, fell silent, listening only to the steady rainfall outside, the quiet hum of the air conditioner, and the sound of my heart beating a little too fast. Occasionally, her eyes lingered on mine just a fraction longer than a breath enough to make my lips tingle with a strange sweetness. A small wave swelling inside me before dissolving quietly into wordless streams of feeling. When I handed her a mint, my fingertip brushed against hers. That touch was feather-light, as delicate as a dragonfly landing on water, and yet it sent a jolt through both of us, our breaths catching for an instant. In that moment, Olivia looked at me, her gaze going deep inside, as if asking, "Do you feel it too?" I'm trembling just the same. I didn't answer. I simply moved closer to her. There was no need for words, because the scent of her hair was already enough to push every thought of deadlines, of work, of anyone else, out of the room, leaving only us. The stale scent of old coffee lingered in the air, mingling with the delicate fragrance of her hair draping down over her shoulders, and the faintly clean smell of her shirt. I realized my hand had come to rest along the back of the sofa, unconsciously wrapping behind her. She didn't move away, nor did she pull back. She simply breathed, her eyes watching me with quiet anticipation. That sense of intimacy needed no bold gesture, only the way two people sat close, letting the charged space between them become something sparkling and trembling, a feeling only grown-ups, who have gone too long without, could truly recognize. Outside, the rain grew heavier, drumming out a steady rhythm that covered any awkward silences. Olivia curled her legs up onto the sofa, pressing her thigh along the edge, her head leaning softly into the pillow, hair spilling down her back in silky waves. The gentle golden light painted her hair with a faint, glowing halo. The skin exposed near her collar turned pink with warmth, her lips pressed together in a smile so genuine, so unguarded. It had been so long since I'd been this close to a woman who didn't need to put up her defenses, to conceal, or to try to seem happier or stronger than she was in daylight. We began telling each other about the small things nobody notices during the day. A time tripping on the stairs from running too fast, nights awake finishing reports while email after email chimed in. The first time I cried just from losing an important file. The emptiness of staring out a window at the city and realizing I was just a dot that nobody would ever notice was missing. Every time Olivia sighed, I found myself holding my breath too, her loneliness reaching out and settling into me, making me want to draw her even closer, erasing whatever gap still lingered between two adults learning to accept their own tenderness. Time drifted slowly in that room. I couldn't say if minutes or hours passed, only that every time Olivia smiled and turned to look at me, it felt as though the whole world had shrunk down to just the two of us. I found myself remembering every tiny detail. The way she tapped her nails on the table when lost in thought, the soft sigh when she spoke of fears of growing older alone, the way she gripped her water glass with both hands as if searching for warmth, though the room was already warm enough. Now and then, I felt a barely perceptible change in the air, as if, with every story told, every meeting of the eyes, another invisible thread drew us closer. When I handed her that mint, brushing my finger against hers, I could sense the anticipation and hesitation in her eyes. It was as though every original reason for returning to the office had been left out in the hallway, along with the echo of high heels earlier. I couldn't help but ask her with my eyes, "Are you afraid?" And I answered myself, "No, you're waiting for me to do something only grown-ups dare to try when reason is finally worn out." I shifted even closer to Olivia, so close I could hear the slight change in her breathing every time I inched nearer. I said nothing, made no sudden movements, just let that intimate atmosphere swell around us, rising in slow waves like moonlight reflected on clear water. The scent of her hair, the faint aroma of old paperwork, weak tea, the mint dissolving between us, and even a hint of sweat at her wrist, all of it mingled into a potion that made me want to move closer and closer still. The rain outside kept falling, wrapping everything in a feeling both safe and dangerous, as if the whole city was asleep and only two sleepless souls remained, giving themselves permission to be fragile, to be honest with their own longing. Olivia no longer held back. She leaned softly into my shoulder, eyes half closed, her breath growing more distinct in the quiet air. When I gently placed my hand on her shoulder, she only smiled, not hiding or stopping me. I felt my own heartbeat pounding harder, each breath of mine mixing with hers, and in that moment, I knew everything had changed. There was only a sliver left between colleagues and two grown-ups who desired each other, even as the faint echo of deadlines drifted from the closed meeting room door. We sat that way for a long time, saying nothing, only exchanging glances, fleeting touches, breaths that grew steady and then quickened in the small, closed space. I knew I would remember this feeling forever. The sense that neither of us was thinking of tomorrow or consequences, that only the present, heating up, urgent and forbidden, was left, enchanted precisely because of the secrecy and its unspoken promise. The faint yellow light from the old desk lamp bathed us in a hazy cocoon, as if the two of us were sitting in some secret cafe reserved for souls daring enough to embrace their loneliness. On the table, papers and colorful pens lay in messy little piles, yet in this moment, all of it meant nothing. The space was stripped down to nothing but the intimacy between two people, breaths entangled, eyes meeting in a silent storm of forbidden longing, with no barriers left except the kind of self-control that comes only from years of practiced restraint. Late at night, exhaustion and the streaks of city lights beyond the window made every emotion feel amplified. Each touch, every whispered word was enough to alter the entire atmosphere around us. As my hand glided gently over Olivia's shoulder, I could feel the thin fabric beneath my palm, the warmth of her skin rising bit by bit, her breathing shifting, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, never settling. I slowly smoothed a loose brown lock at her neck, strands gliding through my fingers, finally cascading down the delicate hollow of her shoulder. Olivia didn't shy away. In fact, she pressed in closer, as if to confirm there was no distance left between us. Her eyes were half closed, dark lashes casting shadows on her cheekbones. Every one of her breaths grew sharper, sending hot little waves rippling across my skin, making it impossible for me to maintain the cool composure I always kept in the office. She bit her lips softly, the natural red even more vivid in the yellow glow. That little gesture wasn't just sensual, it revealed nervousness, a mix of shyness and anticipation, as if she too was listening to the pounding of her own heart. I leaned in, letting my lips brush lightly across her forehead, catching the clean scent of her skin, a trace of lingering soap from the day. Then I drifted down to her cheek, where her smooth skin made me want to linger just a little longer, before stopping finally at her neck, where I could feel the pulse throbbing beneath her skin with every pass of my fingertips. Olivia tilted her head, letting me kiss the most sensitive part of her neck, sighing deeply, and at some point, her hand had slipped onto my chest, her fingers spreading gentle warmth through my thin shirt. She pressed her palm down, as if checking that my heart was really pounding that wildly, a gesture that was half discovery, half seeking reassurance that all this was real, not some brief dream in the night. "Tonight. It's strange, isn't it?" Olivia whispered, her words as soft as a confession and just as much a challenge. I nodded, eyes fixed on hers, still clear yet sparkling with mischief and hesitation. "I don't think I want to go home anymore," I replied, the words escaping softly, but weighted like a secret promise. She smiled, lips curving, her eyes burning with a light all their own, part teasing, part sincere, almost like a child breaking grown-up rules for the very first time. I couldn't resist, leaned in again. This time our lips met. A first kiss that was both a request and a silent nod between two people who no longer felt any need to hold back. She didn't dodge, nor was she overly bold. She simply let me explore. Her lips were soft and warm, tasting faintly of the mint that had just melted away, layered with the anticipation of a long day now mixing with a longing that had been held back far too long. There is something so strange about kissing someone you've desired after months of holding the line. It's both liberating and incendiary, as if every sense suddenly wakes up after being numb for years. My hand moved up to the nape of her neck, caressing the softness of her hair. Each time my fingers traced her skin, Olivia shivered, her breathing ragged, chest rising and falling, her shoulders relaxing in a way I'd never seen before. I asked, not loudly and not really seeking an answer, "Do you want to leave?" The words hung heavy in the charged air, in a place where every reason to walk away had long since faded. Olivia looked at me, her eyes firmer than ever, lips curled in a smile as she shook her head. "No, tonight I want to stay." I heard every word clearly, each syllable sinking into me like a gentle but resolute command, granting us permission for all the pent-up emotion to spill free at last. The room was no longer an office filled with spreadsheets and invisible deadlines. It had transformed into a secret refuge for two souls who knew what it meant to be vulnerable, to want at the right moment. In that space, every motion, every whisper, every lingering touch carried the consent of two adults. Two people who knew that tonight would be long, unforgettable, and belonged to them alone, always. The atmosphere in the office was completely transformed with just the two of us left, quietly walking side by side under the faint light stretching across the carpet. Every step echoed in the silent hallway, the sound of shoes on the floor, the whisper of fabric brushing together, our breaths coming together, compressed in our chests, both of us waiting for something we'd longed for without ever saying a word. We drifted past the now darkened workstations, past the familiar rows of filing cabinets, things that had always been part of the background for so many years, but never before had they felt like silent witnesses, a part of a memory that would forever belong to just me and Olivia. The large conference room opened up, the wall lights dimmed, casting everything in a golden haze. I closed the door and drew the curtains shut, creating a world apart where every sound from outside was nothing but a distant echo. In that space, there were only the two of us, chairs pushed aside, a large conference table with a glass top gleaming in the dimness, reflecting our bodies blurring into each other. Olivia walked over and sat on the table, her legs crossed with effortless grace, her back straight but her shoulders slightly relaxed, her slender fingers absent-mindedly turning a plastic cup of water left behind, the sound as soft as a breeze passing through the night. I stood facing her, watching, feeling both anticipation and a challenge in every glance, every breath. No words were needed as I moved closer. My hands found her waist, feeling her softness through the thin fabric, the heat of her body radiating into my fingers, making every ounce of reason slow to a crawl. I pulled her gently towards me. Olivia did not resist, wrapping her arms around my neck, her grip soft but sure, as if confirming that tonight there would be no more hesitation or doubt. Her face was now only a breath away from mine, brown hair cascading over her shoulders, the little ceiling lamp casting a pale halo around her face and neck, making her skin glow even softer, more luminous. That first kiss was neither rushed nor clumsy, but a melding of two long-restrained desires. Her lips were soft, warm, at first just a gentle brush, then growing deeper, more passionate, as all our pent-up feelings loosened at once. Olivia responded to the kiss with a gasp, her hot breath wrapping around mine, her fingertips tracing the back of my neck, each touch sending a cold shiver down my spine before heat rushed in to take its place, my heart pounding wildly with every breath. I refused to hurry, choosing instead to caress her back through her thin shirt, each movement slow, savoring every centimeter of skin beneath the fabric. The scent of her body blended with her faint perfume, the sweet taste of lipstick lingering in every touch, and all my senses came alive, the outside world vanishing, replaced only by the nearness that left no room for logic to intrude. Olivia gave a soft moan as my lips found her neck, her fingers digging into my shoulders, her body trembling, not from cold, but from a quiet fire burning inside both our chests. The sound of rain outside merged with our heartbeats, creating a soundtrack for this encounter. Every kiss, every brush of the hand, every hurried breath seemed amplified in the hush of the closed room. The big conference table beneath us was no longer just a place for contracts, but had become an impromptu bed for a sleepless night, for feelings that could not be hidden any longer. Olivia's every movement was a mix of shyness and boldness, her hands wandering up and down my back, her breath hot in my ear, and each time my mouth traveled from her neck to her shoulder, she tightened her arms around me, as if wishing I could stay right there, in that moment, forever. There was something so special in being allowed this secrecy, in forgetting all the day's rules and roles. Neither of us remembered deadlines or work or emails, only the growing thirst for affection, the kind of feeling people rarely name in the daytime. I looked deep into her eyes, saw the light there, a confession and a sweet surrender to all the taboos we'd quietly carried for so long. There was no need for promises, only the way we clung to each other, giving hugs, kisses, whispers so soft it seemed only the two of us in the world could ever hear. In that conference room, with the curtains drawn tight, the lights dimmed, and the cold surface of the glass table beneath us, I could feel every emotion rising up, raw and real, as if the world outside had vanished for good. All that remained were two bodies, two breaths, two hearts, little moans and glances searching for each other in the quiet dark. That sense of secrecy only made every sensation more intense, more beautiful, like a secret that even years later, both Olivia and I would never forget, no matter how many new masks we put on to return to everyday life. I lifted Olivia down from the cold surface of the conference table, feeling my arms wrap fully around her, the real weight of her body, the softness of her office dress sliding across my skin, the warmth at her waist sinking straight into my chest. I gently placed her on the sofa, in a room now lit only by a dreamy, soft yellow glow that seemed to wash over every inch of her skin, every lock of hair cascading over her shoulder. every curve beneath the fabric coming alive with a vibrancy that daylight would never reveal. Olivia settled herself on my lap, her arms draping around my shoulders, her hair brushing over my chest, her head nestled into my neck, her breath drifting over my ear and collarbone, each breath like a tiny arrow piercing straight to that deepest, hidden instinct I'd always tried to keep in check. Our breathing, by now, was no longer even. Every inhale and exhale burned with unmistakable heat, no longer masked by idle conversation, no longer constrained by fear of consequence, but becoming the main rhythm guiding everything that happened next. I could feel her chest rise and fall, her heartbeat fluttering fast against mine, her skin hot beneath the soft fabric. We kissed long and deep, sweet and desperate, lingering kisses, breath mingling, our lips finding each other in the darkness where only the faintest light lingered. Each time my hand glided along her side, tracing those supple curves, the air in the room thickened, everything slowing down, every sense allowed to come fully alive, leaving no space for reason or logic to intrude. I whispered in her ear, my breath warm against her earlobe, my voice low and rough, "We'll keep this our secret, right?" Olivia smiled, her lips brushing my ear, her whisper as soft as a kiss. "Just for tonight, just you and me." That voice was the final confirmation, the ticket that let instinct take the lead. No more barriers, no more distance, no more boundaries except the ones inside this tiny room. We let our impulses take over. Nothing hidden, nothing avoided. Only fiery grips, urgent embraces, names whispered in the darkness, where even the smallest sound felt momentous. I planted feather-like kisses along her collarbone, savoring the smoothness of her skin beneath my lips, hearing her shaky breath, the quiet moans escaping each time my fingers found her most sensitive places. Olivia gripped my shoulders, not just holding me but anchoring me in this very moment, not letting anything from outside creep in. Each time I lifted my mouth from her shoulder to meet her gaze, I saw that shimmering light in her eyes, both surrender and invitation, daring me to keep going further, to the place where desire and reason were divided by nothing more than the thinnest thread, ready to snap at the slightest tug. The air in the room seemed to freeze in time, every sensation heightened, every sound, the pounding of hearts, the friction of fabric, the gasps for breath, becoming the soundtrack for a love song only the two of us could hear. Lingering kisses, tight embraces, whispered names, tiny moans with every touch upon her sensitive skin, all of it wove together into a silent, powerful dance. The dance of two adults willingly leaving their safety behind, just to live this night, this secret, and their truest selves to the fullest. Both of us gradually slipped down onto the sofa, no longer caring about the wrinkles in our clothes or how tangled our hair had become. The jacket forgotten from earlier now became a thin blanket enveloping two bodies growing warmer by the minute. Olivia's scent mingled with the freshness of newly showered skin, a hint of lingering perfume, and even the faint traces of paperwork lingering around the room. A kind of breath of adult life. I could feel layers of fabric brushing together, the stretch and release of thin cloth each time my hand traced the length of her back. The softest parts of her skin gradually revealed themselves beneath my fingertips, warm, shivering, and almost startlingly sensitive. Every time I explored, Olivia would tremble, sometimes moan softly, or bite her lip, her hand clinging to my arm as if it was the only solid thing in a world reduced to nothing but breath and heartbeat. The office at night grew ever quieter as the hours passed. the sounds of the outside world disappearing until all that was left was the ragged rhythm of our breathing, the pounding of our hearts, the friction of fabric, and sometimes Olivia's playful, contented laughter. I realized I could no longer tell where skin ended and breath began, where the dark stopped and the body started. Everything seemed to merge together into a private symphony. For those who know the beauty of taking things slowly, who know how to pause just long enough to admire the trembling, the subtle touch, the whispers that come alive in the dim glow. We said things to each other that we'd never have dared to utter in the harsh light of day, where everyone wore the armor of logic and responsibility. Olivia gasped, whispering in my ear that she'd never imagined herself doing something like this, in the office, in a place that always felt cold and impersonal, now somehow transformed into the warmest place in the world. I confessed my own strange thrill at knowing what was happening, right here in a place that no one could ever believe, and how the forbidden nature of it all made every sensation ignite like wildfire, needing no further reason. So we held each other, wrapped up in the dim light on that old meeting room sofa, letting every feeling flow naturally with our breathing. No rush, no dramatic noise, no need to put on a show. Each time I bent to kiss her neck, Olivia would laugh quietly, tightening her hold, her lips finding my ear to whisper things only darkness and warmth could ever hear. Her voice, breathless, said, "If anyone knew, they'd be shocked." I could only smile, pulling her tighter against me, whispering back, "I don't care, just don't leave me tonight." In that moment, every worry about tomorrow, every fear of what might come, faded away. No more meetings, no more reports, no more deadlines, no more roles. Just two people at their most honest and vulnerable, together as if the entire world outside had retreated into some distant dream. I felt Olivia tremble again, but this time within my arms, and I knew tonight would be a sleepless night. A night where every touch, every whisper, every shared laugh and little moan would remain the most beautiful secret belonging only to the two of us. After all the passion and intoxication, what remained was a gentle stillness in each other's arms. Lying on that familiar sofa that had once been so cold and indifferent through countless tedious meetings. Now it had become a shelter for two entwined bodies, sharing a thin jacket as a blanket, a small sign of comfort and protection amid the pressures and rules of the world outside. Dawn began to creep through the tall glass windows, the first weak rays of morning painting Olivia's skin in pale golden streaks, creating a scene half real, half dreamlike. One I knew I would never forget, no matter how many sunrises would pass through my life after this. I gently stroked her hair, feeling my fingertips slip through the soft strands, still carrying a trace of shampoo and the faint, salty scent of sweat from the long night. I whispered her name, not to wake her, but as a way of marking every emotion that had swept over us during the night, from the first trembling to the outpouring of longing, then the peace that settled over us like a wave receding into the shore. Olivia lay still, eyes closed, breathing steady, her chest rising and falling gently like a kitten curled in the palm of my hand. I pressed my cheek to her hair, feeling her heartbeat, slow and steady, pulse through my own chest, a wordless melody that only the two of us would ever know. Neither of us spoke, simply lying there, listening to the first sounds of the city coming back to life. A distant car horn caught in the wind, the faint chirping of birds, the quiet vibration of the elevator shaft below, then the click of a light switch in the neighboring room. The meeting room still held the scent of the night before, and we both felt the bittersweet knowledge that this moment was about to end, that soon All the rules, the masks, the daytime roles would return. But there was one thing only Olivia and I knew: the secret of this first night, of the first time two adults allowed themselves to cross the line and touch the most fragile, truest part within. Before leaving the office, Olivia sat up, slowly fixing her hair and adjusting her dress, her eyes full of longing as she looked at me. In her gaze, I saw regret, fear, and a smoldering tenderness, like a hidden fire burning beneath rain. "I don't know what tomorrow will bring," she whispered, her lips trembling as if she was trying to hold on to something slipping from her grasp. "But I will never forget tonight." I pulled her close, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead, a kiss of understanding, a silent promise to keep this secret for the two of us alone. I smiled, meeting her eyes. "We'll always have this secret, just you and me." She smiled too, the morning light illuminating her face, gentle and radiant, deeply and unmistakably feminine. As if unwilling to part, Olivia placed her hand on my chest one last time, feeling my heartbeat, making sure everything that happened in the night was real. I took her hand, holding it tight, savoring that last bit of warmth before we both returned to reality. Outside the glass, the city was now fully awake. The office returned to its usual rhythm, but for me and Olivia, everything had changed. We walked out of the meeting room, exchanging one last look before parting ways in the hallway, each of us carrying inside a beautiful secret that no one could ever steal away. The first dawn after a sleepless night, a night when longing and vulnerability had been allowed to live, to breathe, and to remain forever in the memory of two grown-ups who knew how to love and how to keep something truly for themselves. When the door closed softly behind Olivia, all the sounds of the world seemed to return to their original silence. I sat alone in the empty office, on the same familiar swivel chair, my gaze drifting out through the rain-speckled window. This space, once filled only with the scent of paperwork, printer ink, coffee, and harsh white fluorescent light, now felt transformed. I could sense her warmth lingering everywhere. In the stray scent caught in the fibers of fabric, on the sofa where our bodies had entwined, even in the faint echo of laughter still hanging in the corner of the pantry, and most of all, in the memory of those breathless whispers that shattered the night. Perhaps after tonight, everything will return to its usual rhythm. Everyone will put their office masks back on, chatting about contracts, deadlines, and the trivialities of grown-up life. But only Olivia and I know that in this very room, there was a night when every boundary and every bit of logic melted away, making space for a fleeting, forbidden love, fiery, full of longing, and yet so gentle. A secret that the two of us will keep for ourselves, like an unsent love letter, like a melody with no words that will always play somewhere in the heart. I looked at the completed project plan lying neatly on the table. All the numbers and reasoning suddenly distant and pale in comparison to what had just unfolded. What lingered most wasn't pride in my work, but the feeling of that unexpected night, where two lonely souls found each other in this vast city, where yellow lamplight, the sound of rain, and quickened breaths came together in a harmony that could never be repeated. That was the most beautiful afterglow of a sleepless night, a sweet secret that only when the night falls again do I dare call by its name, smiling quietly and keeping it forever for myself.